Have you ever run into the issue where no matter what you do, your beats just never sound right? Even if you get the melody right, the chords right, your sound selection right, it just never sounds professional. And no matter how many times you mess with like the volume knobs or make adjustments, it just sounds like muddy or like something's just wrong with it. Or even if you can get it to sound right in your headphones, the second you switch over to a speaker, it just sounds like freaking hot garbage. Well, you're in luck, because by the time you finish this video, you will never have that issue again, because what's good, YouTube? It's your boy Middi, and I'm gonna teach you exactly what causes that problem and the exact steps that you need to fix it so that I can take you from sounding like this to sounding like this. So regardless of genre or instruments, the main cause of a bad or muddy mix is almost always going to result from the same thing: too much sound. So when there's too many sounds fighting for attention, that is what results in that muddy sound. So in order to have a clean mix, we have to literally clean up the audio the same way that you would do if you were cleaning your room. You have to throw out the garbage that you don't need, and then you have to organize everything else into its proper place, right? So once you start to think of mixing in this way as just a cleaning up process, it's going to make it 100 times easier to know exactly what to do. So for mixing, we'll be using the same exact 3-step process for every single thing that we mix. It doesn't matter if it's a piano, a synth, a snare. Literally, it doesn't matter what you're mixing, the steps will always be the same. And those steps are volume control, frequency control, and space control. So step 1 is going to be to get the volume under control. So as I'm sure you've noticed, there is actually 2 volume knobs for every sound. For this tropical plunk sound that I have first, we have a volume knob on the channel rack, but we also have another volume knob right here that's on the mixer rack. So you might be thinking, okay, if we already have a volume knob directly on the sound in the channel rack, what the heck is the point of this volume knob on the mixer? Well, the best way to explain it is actually going to be with an example. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play 2 pieces of audio that are the exact same sample, and they're both going to be set to the exact same volume, right? But you're gonna notice something very different between the 2. So I'm gonna play version 1 right now, and I want you to pay attention to where the volume is. So you see that the volume is around 15 decibels, right? This second sample is the exact same sample, and I set it to be the exact same volume. But we're gonna listen to what this second version sounds like. I'm not even gonna force y'all to listen to the whole thing. See how this one clearly sounds like something's freaking wrong with it? That right there is exactly why we have 2 different volume knobs and why you need to use both of them. And that reason being, we wanna make sure that we don't get clipping and distortion in our song. So basically, the channel rack volume shouldn't be thought of as actual volume. The way you should think about it is more like, how much of this sound do I need? And then as far as the mixer volume, that is actually how loud do I want this sound to be, right? So you have to keep the initial volume under control, because if it's already clipping from the channel rack volume, then no amount of turning this volume down is going to make it undistorted. I like to set each sound in the channel rack to its own specific place on the mixer rack, which if you don't know how to do that, you want to make sure that you click on this, double click so that all of these are highlighted, and then you want to click on mixer track 1, and you want to hold Control Shift L on the keyboard, and then that's going to go ahead and set each of these individual sounds to their own mixer rack, and it's also going to name it the same thing so that you know what's what. And then after I set each sound onto the rack, regardless of what it is, I always make sure that I adjust the channel rack volume so that the master volume for that sound is at 12 decibels. I do not want it above 12, because if I leave it at 12, I'm leaving room for me to increase the volume later without having to worry about it peaking, which happens at 0. So I give myself a lot of wiggle room to increase the volume without it clipping. Once we go ahead and do that, that for each of the sounds, which when I'm doing that, I always leave the knobs exactly as they are. So obviously when you first open up a project, all of these are set to be at the max volume. I always adjust the channel rack volume while this volume is maxed out, right? And then later on is when I adjust how loud I want the sound. But as you may notice, if it's already maxed out and it's already at 12 decibels, you can't really make it louder because it's already max volume. So what I do is I set up the mastering so that we can actually pump up the volume, and also so that we can hear what the final product is going to sound like. So on the master channel, I always grab two plugins. I grab Maximus, which you click on this little arrow, you go to replace, and then you find Maximus wherever it is right there. And then you also want to grab Fruity Limiter, which looks like this, and Maximus looks like this. For Maximus, you want to grab the preset Clear Master RMS. Do not ask me what Clear Master RMS stands for. I have no clue. I just know that it works. So you want to click on Clear Master RMS, and then for the Fruity Limiter, you want to go to the preset that says Mastering. This is basically just like a volume boost. I like to mute every single volume, like bring all of them completely down once I do that, because like I said, Maximus in the limiter is increasing the volume. So if you just hit play and all of these are already maxed out, you're gonna freaking destroy your eardrums. So you want to mute everything, and then after that you want to then slowly increase the volume on the mixer knobs until that particular sound is at the volume that you want. And then the order that I usually do it is I'll pick out what is like the main sound, like the most important sound, and then I'll start with just that one on its own, and then I'll go ahead and adjust it to the volume that I want, and then after that, I'll find the next most important sound, which is going to be muted, and then I'll start bringing that up until it sounds right alongside with the first sound, and then just slowly, one by one, I start adjusting the volumes like that. Now that we have everything set properly so that it's not clipping, all the volumes are the way that they should be, that should already fix like half the problem by itself. But we're not done. Next, we need to worry about fixing the frequencies, which I like to call the taking out the trash and cleaning up the clutter side of things, right? So the best way to explain frequencies is this. Sound can range from very low to very high. That range from low to high is what's known as the frequency range, and every single sound possible is going to fall somewhere in that range from low to high, right? So for our purposes, when it comes to mixing, the most important thing to know is that every frequency within a sound is not necessary. There's frequencies in every single instrument that don't exactly add anything to the sound itself, but it can very clearly still be heard in your ears. And if you have multiple instruments all containing unnecessary frequencies all stacked and piled on top of each other, that is what creates that muddy sound, because the frequency range is too cluttered. So the way to fix this is we need to remove all of the unnecessary and unwanted frequencies from each and every individual sound. And the best way to do that is with an EQ. So FL Studio has their own stock EQ that comes with it, Fruity Parametric EQ. This is the only EQ you will ever need. You don't need to download some new fancy EQ for $50. The stock one works perfectly. So this is already set and adjusted, but I'm gonna go ahead and put this back to default just so that you can see how I go about doing it. So let's just single out this one sound so that I can demonstrate. When you press play, you see this little like mountain that kind of pops up? That is the frequency range of the instrument. And if you pay close attention, you can see that there's like little outlier bumps that aren't part of the main mountain that show up underneath and above where the actual range is. Those are the unnecessary frequencies that we don't want. In order to remove those so that we just have the main frequencies that we need, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to one, you're gonna right click, and you're gonna go to type, and you're going to go to high pass, and then for 7, you are going to go to type, and you're gonna go to low pass. pass. A high pass means everything below 1, the volume is going to be turned down. And for the low pass, it means everything above this 7 is going to start getting muted. Now, the muting isn't just an immediate cutoff, it follows this ramp. So if you need the ramp to be more aggressive, which for this sound I would say it should be, you want to go over here to this thing where you see the square, and then you want to drag down with your mouse, and then you want to get it to the 4 squares. This is going to make it more steep. We can also do the same thing for number 1. And now we can go ahead and use these knobs down here for 1 and for 7, and we can adjust where the cutoff is going to happen. So we're going to listen again. And you see that the main sounds, I would say the main sounds end up at about 4, and everything below 4, all of this we don't need. So we can go ahead and move this one over. And then for 7, I would say we only need to move it maybe just a little bit. The most important thing, as you might have heard when I just did that, you want to cut off unnecessary frequencies. You do not want to be so aggressive with it that you're actually cutting off frequencies that you need, right? So as you can hear, if I do this cut too aggressively, now we're cutting out frequencies that we actually need in order for the sound to actually sound full and not like is like friggin' limp and weak and friggin' malnourished. We want to make sure that the main frequencies are still there. We're only trying to cut off the extra little unnecessary frequencies that pop up. And if you're working with a sound where you feel like you can't really get it right, like you feel like the cut is still too aggressive, then you can go over here and adjust this back to maybe 1 square or 2 squares, 3 squares. This is basically the thing that says how aggressive you want the ramp off in volume. So now we can go ahead and listen to the difference. So this is without you EQing. And then this is what it sounds like when we EQ. You see how it just sounds like cleaner and like tighter? It has like more of a polished sound to it because we got rid of the things that weren't necessary. But also you hear that it still has that oomph and that punch that we wanted from the sound while getting rid of the things that we don't need. Once you get everything sounding how you want it with the EQs, once you go ahead and EQ everything, now it is time for the secret sauce. This is the secret sauce that most people don't know about that truly takes your beats to that next level of sounding professional. And what that is stereo separation. You might have noticed that I have these knobs set down here when your knobs probably all look like this. It's not turned on. So what the heck are these knobs? These knobs control the stereo separation. What the heck is stereo separation? The best way I can explain it is like this. With an orchestra, if you've ever been to a show or just, even if you're just looking at this picture for the first time, you can very clearly see that every group of instruments is in their own space, right? These people with the cellos are all over here. The people with the violins are standing over here. The people with the flutes are sitting over here. Everyone has their own spot on the stage to sit, and they're not just like all piled in together, or you don't see this person over there and then this person over there and then this tuba guy over here. Everyone has their own specific designated spot on the stage, right? So the reason why they do this is because they want to make sure that every sound has its own space to be distinct, right? Because if all of them were piled on top of each other, you wouldn't be able to hear the distinct different sounds. It would all just be like one discombobulated mess, right? And basically what we're doing with stereo separation is we're following this exact same principle that they're using for the orchestra, but we're doing it within FL Studio. And when you first load up the mixer rack, it's going to be in the middle. And the way that it works is when it's in the middle, think of the sound being played by 2 people who are standing on a stage, right? The same with the orchestra people, right? And when it's in the middle, imagine then there's two people, because you know it's stereo. You got the left headphone, you got the right headphone. So you got two people. You got this person, you got this person, right? And as you move this knob to the left, you're increasing the separation between the two people. So if you move the separation to right here, like halfway to the left, that means that now you're two people inside your computer playing the instruments. Now she's sitting right here and he's sitting right here. And then once you move the knob all the way to the left, now your people in your computer that's playing the sounds, now this woman is sitting right here, and now this man is sitting right here. That's the best way to visualize what it's actually doing. You want to adjust each one of your sounds. Well, each of your sounds that isn't a drum. As you can see, for the drums, I don't do this because it's not necessary to do with drums. But for instruments, it is very necessary to do. So you want to make sure that every single instrument that you have that is not drums, you want to make sure that they're standing in their own distinct place on stage, so that each of your sounds can be distinct and very clearly heard. So I'm gonna let you hear it with the stereo separation and without the stereo separation. So this is what everything sounds like without me stereo separating. And then this is what it sounds like with the stereo separating. Like, you see how it just adds that little extra polish? Now after that is when you can start adding reverb, delay, and like whatever other sounds you want to use to like jazz and spice it up. Now once you follow my 3-step process, I promise you, your beats will start to sound a whole heck of a lot more polished and professional sounding. And yeah, that's the end of the video. So thanks for watching. If you feel like I helped you learn something valuable, don't forget to show love by hitting that like button and leaving a comment. The next video is going to be a redo of my music theory video to make it a bit easier to digest. So don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss that. And also, if you're interested in hearing the full version of this song that I've been working on, and also the rest of my music, you can follow my music channel. I'm going to link that down below. But that's going to be it for me today. So take care and I'll see you soon. Peace. Watch that money fall with them trips out to